2 of her family members passed away during the massacre. So behind me, this is where the massacre happened. You can tell how much it's affected the people.
Don't talk about it.
I actually knew him personally.
People want answers.
The Port Arthur Massacre on April 28, 1996 was the worst ever massacre in Australian history. 28-year-old Martin Bryant went on a killing spree at a riverside cafe and other nearby locations, shooting 35 people dead and injuring 23. Today I've arrived in the tiny Tasmanian town of Port Arthur to interview locals about the events that unfolded 26 years ago.
In Australia, after a day of terror and death, a grim investigation continues today.
A horrific tale of survival told from a Hobart hospital bed.
The capital punishment debate has flared in response to Tasmania's Port Arthur massacre.
A 29-year-old man is in custody, blamed for the deaths of nearly 3 dozen people.
And where better to start than the Port Arthur historic site? I asked the receptionist where we should go, but midway during the conversation, I felt she became uncomfortable, so she gave us this pamphlet instead. That for many people, including staff members at Port Arthur, answering questions about what happened in the massacre can be very disturbing. We prefer not to use the name of the gunman. From here, we decided to visit the site where the event took place. There's a lot of things down here that are very eye-opening, very interesting about, history. So behind me, this is where the massacre happened, right here in Port Arthur. There is a some sort of like a memorial here. This is where it all happened back in 1996, so it's very surreal being here.
35 people. There's apparently only 250 people who live in this area, so basically everyone in this place would have known someone who tragically passed away during this incident. So
we then decided to head into town to see if some people were open to sharing their thoughts. This town is so tiny that we have like one general store here, but you can tell how much it's affected the people because obviously it's so close to home. We then met a lady who experienced the Port Arthur tragedy firsthand and was open to sharing her story.
It was a cold autumn's day, and from the very first instance I seen lots of ambulances go through. Even nowadays ambulances kind of takes you back to that time. My niece and my cousin were some of the people that were unfortunate to be down there on that day. So yeah, it's taken a lot of years to try and build our lives back up. I actually knew him personally. I was best friends with his sister. He had a lot of mental issues. One of those people you didn't want to get on the wrong side of.
And why do you think he did what he did?
No idea. Just a person that held grudges, I guess, and just was trying to tick off all those names.
There's some people around here that don't really talk about it, but they didn't really know the person, see, so I don't know a great deal about him. There's a lot of stuff going on there behind the scenes that actually got him to carry on. Yeah, right. So I'm not sure what it was, but something to do with the politics of his family or something. So yeah, they don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a touchy topic.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
One thing I couldn't wrap my head around for the past 20 to 30 years is why Martin Bryant's mother, Carleen Bryant, still thinks her son is innocent.
A lot of people on that day, people who knew Martin, had known Martin for years, came forward after and they said, as far as they were concerned, they didn't recognise the gunman as being Martin Bryant.
Another person who has always claimed Martin Bryant's innocence is Queensland Senator Pauline Hanson, who believes that the Port Arthur massacre was a government setup to push through gun control legislation.
And MP said it would actually take a massacre in Tasmania to change the government rules.
I decided to do some research of my own and found a man in Melbourne named Paul Morder, who was in the process of directing a film about the Port Arthur massacre being a government conspiracy.
Yes, my name's Paul Morder. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and in 2016 I tackled the very distressing and torturous ordeal of trying to make a film about the Port Arthur massacre. So I just dug very deeply and I was shaking my head saying this doesn't add up, this is strange. This was the biggest mass killing in Australia at the time by a lone gunman, and we didn't have a coronial inquest. Now a coronial inquest is mandated under state law if there is violent death or death by fire or if foreign nationals die on Australian soil, all of which happened at Port Arthur, and we had no coronial inquest because John Howard, the Prime Minister, squashed it.
Should put that on recording. it's still recording at this present stage.
Martin Bryant was convicted by his own confession, and they went, right, that's it. Case closed. We don't need to examine the event anymore. We don't need to speak to witnesses. Locked him up, threw away the key. And it was like, hang on, there's a lot of questions. I'm very good friends with a gentleman by the name of Graham Collier, very remarkable man, who was in the cafe with friends at the time. He said, I watched this guy with this long blonde hair and long coat do a circuit of the whole perimeter and then come back in and start shooting Bryant. He was within spitting distance of the shooter and turned around to help his friends and took a bullet through the throat, which exited out through the rear of his skull, and he somehow survived. Remarkable man. I interviewed him and he told me that the shooter, the person who shot him, was not Martin Bryant. And I said, are you sure? He goes, 100%.
So what did Graham Collier describe the shooter like? Because obviously Martin Bryant is known to have long blonde hair, would have been a young figure at the time. How exactly did he look? Did he have that same hair colour?
There are plenty of witnesses' statements saying, we saw this guy doing the shooting. They describe a guy in a long coat and long blonde hair. But Martin Bryant was known for having flawless skin. But Graham definitely said that the shooter had like acne-scarred skin and workers' hands. So there was some disparities between the person he saw committing the shooting and Martin Bryant himself. A lot of people tell me there's two Martin Bryants. One's very like, oh, I'm just sort of innocent and sort of giggly and a bit silly. And some of the prison people I spoke to said you'd throw a ball at Martin and it would just hit him in the chest and he'd fall on the ground, he wouldn't catch it.
I mean, I know I've done the wrong thing, but surely they can train me.
And then other people told me he was very cunning and very cold and very calculating. And when you read the unredacted transcript, he's very clever. He's playing with the cops. All I'll say to finish off is that I know Port Arthur was a setup, but I can't prove it.
Just want to pay my respects to the victims of the Port Arthur massacre back in 1996. It's obviously a very touchy topic in Port Arthur and in Tasmania as a whole. Hopefully you guys learned something about some of the victims that, you know, do have some sort of correlation to the massacre. I also encourage you guys to be sensitive about the topic if you do come to Port Arthur, and nonetheless, it is a very beautiful town in Tasmania, which I would highly recommend you guys to visit. Just want to thank the locals of Port Arthur as well for being so hospitable, so open, and so vulnerable to an extent as well in sharing their stories. And yeah, shout out to you guys, and last but not least, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.